Crab, home to the famous Krabby Patty, and a source of joy and happiness for many, if not all, the citizens of Bikini Bottom. It's estimated that nearly 60% of the money spent in Bikini Bottom is spent here. And behind every dollar made is business tycoon Eugene Krabs.
You can't talk about the state of modern fast food without talking about Eugene, because Eugene shaped the world of modern fast food.
He's known as a crab with an insatiable lust for money, a crab who will do almost anything to turn a profit. And he's even been known to flirt with the edge of legality.
He implemented a number of fees for his employees. They had to pay to breathe, to stand, just for even existing. I'm not sure everything he was doing was entirely legal.
His methods were the spark of more than one controversy. But it was those same methods that gave him the immense power and wealth he has today.
Regardless of his methods, Krabs was intelligent, an extremely effective leader, and he absolutely turned corporate Bikini Bottom on its head.
But Krabs wasn't always the business mogul he is today. In fact, he was once quite the opposite.
If you knew the Krabs family when Eugene was growing up, you knew, well, they had fallen on hard times.
They were always looking for where their next meal would come from. I remember Eugene would wear these clothes that his mother had made from the spare rags she collected from the neighbors. I mean, it is literally a rags to riches story.
Born to Betsy and Victor Krabs, Eugene spent his childhood living in poverty, with nothing but the second-hand clothes on his back. And a friend.
Eugene and Sheldon, they were an unlikely pair, to say the least. But they were just drawn to each other.
They were bullied badly by the other kids. That can really bond people, you know? They had each other. That's really all they had.
With Sheldon Plankton by his side, Eugene seemed content with the status quo. That is, until he was introduced to the love of his life, money.
I think it was just a penny that he found on the ground. He didn't know what it was, but he was infatuated by it. You have to understand, he didn't come from money, so this was a totally new concept for him.
Think about it. Since before he was born, the Krabs family had nothing. That was the only lifestyle he knew. So to suddenly learn that there is this tool out there that would allow him to change that lifestyle, no wonder it held such an allure to him.
From that point forward, money was always top of mind for Eugene Krabs, and it became the driving force behind all of his ambitions. But there was another influence behind Eugene's newfound ambition: Stinky Burgers.
Stinky Burgers was the burger joint. If you were a kid in Bikini Bottom at that age, you were going to Stinky's after school.
Stinky was a hero to those kids. They looked up to him, they idolized him, but Stinky was a real stinker.
Eugene and Sheldon were the outcast among these kids. Stinky could see that. But instead of helping them, he joined in the bullying. He needed to keep up this persona that he was the cool adult.
He's a grown man and he's bullying those poor kids to benefit his business. I mean, all they wanted was to feel like they belong, and they go to a burger joint and they can't even feel welcome. I mean, he made them take their orders out of the back of the restaurant where no one could see them.
Although Stinky seemed like a low-wage everyman just scraping by, if he was seen outside of work, it was clear that he was living in luxury.
Eugene wanted two things more than anything else: money, and he wanted Stinky to see that he was worth something. Now, he saw how rich the burger industry had made Stinky, so he figured if he could just make a decent burger, it would force Stinky to respect him.
It was no surprise that Eugene chose Sheldon as his business partner. He didn't have other options.
From there, the two partners secured the only space they could afford, an abandoned trailer in the city dump. It was then that they experimented with countless ingredients and formulas, on a quest to make the perfect patty.
I would love to get inside Eugene's brain. He did things with patty batter that nobody had ever thought of before. Now, some of them didn't work, but some did. The man was an innovator, a genius.
With Krabs' brains and ambition working at full force, it wasn't long before he and Plankton had cooked up their first prototype of a patty, the Plab patty. Seeking validation, they brought the product of their labor straight to Stinky. But for Stinky, business had taken a foul turn.
And they never saw Stinky again. But you have to understand, where all the other kids were loved unconditionally, Eugene always felt he had to prove his self-worth. And he never got the chance. I think that's why he's so obsessed with success.
After seeing the fate of Stinky Burgers, Krabs began to worry that his own business would be short-lived. And it almost was.
Customers were getting sick. Eugene was working out of the dump. In retrospect, it's no wonder the patties were tainted. But hindsight's 20/20, I guess.
The business was still in its infancy, so there was a lot riding on the reputation they earned in those early days. And, well, things didn't look good. It wasn't until the Jenkins incident that it got really bad.
Old Man Jenkins was a friend and neighbor of the Krabs family, and as such, he was an ideal choice to test and review new recipes. But testing prototype fast food came at a dangerous price. Krabs chalked the incident up to a seaweed overdose due to Plankton's habit of over-seaweeding, while Plankton maintained that Krabs hadn't properly preserved the patty.
This was a colossal disaster. No friendship would have survived that. So they went their separate ways.
That was the lowest point in Eugene's life. His business was threatening to go under. He brought harm to Old Man Jenkins, and he lost his best friend and business partner. A lesser Krab would have thrown in a towel, but not Eugene.
The school kid's Stinky, and now his best friend Plankton. All his life, he's surrounded by all these people who just want to see him fail. And that's all he needed. Eugene Krabs was not about to let them get the last laugh.
Krabs went back to work, never looking back at his broken partnership. Instead, he directed his focus toward a new recipe. A recipe that would kickstart an empire. A recipe that would change the world. A recipe for the Krabby Patty.
The Krabby Patty did for the fast food industry what the smartphone did for the tech industry. It was such a simple idea, but it was revolutionary. The kind of thing that people taste and think, well, why didn't I think of that? I don't know. But you didn't. Eugene Krabs did.
Overnight, Eugene's new recipe was the talk of the town. Those who had tried them had stepped into a new frontier of the fast food world. And there was no going back.
The rate at which the popularity of the Krabby Patty exploded was overwhelming. Everybody wanted a taste.
With the Krabby Patty in his arsenal, Krabs knew his business was on the verge of blowing up. But then came the war, and everything changed.
During the war, Eugene felt very strongly about doing his part. I mean, everybody did. So he put his dream on hold, enlisted in the Navy. Old Armor Abs Krabs, he was the toughest of the tough. I always dreamed about winning the Manly Toughness Award. But Armor Abs, he won it fair and square.
His Navy friends seemed to fill the void that Plankton had left. And more so, it provided him with a feeling he'd never had as a child. For the first time in Eugene Krabs' life, he belonged.
Well, the Navy kept him busy, kept him moving. And surrounded by all his buddies, he didn't have time to feel regret about his business. But after the war was over, he had nothing but time. And then he started to think, what now? Where does my life go from here?
Krabs fell into a deep depression that seemed endless. Without his Navy buddies or his business to keep him occupied, he remained secluded in his bedroom for the majority of his time. But as luck would have it, the failings of a bankrupt retirement home would turn his life around.
The Rusty Krab was a standard retirement home. It had shuffleboard, nautical flags, poster of a burger in the window. It's hard to say why it went under, but when Krabs acquired it, all he could see was a fast food restaurant.
The acquisition seemed to revitalize his passions, and with a little work, he was able to completely transform the Rusty Krab into the Krusty Krab.
He started selling all kinds of things. Coral bits, bathroom tokens, you name it. But there was no question about what his major product would be. It had to be the Krabby Patty.
He was always so protective about that so-called secret formula. He never breathed a word about it. No. Loose lips sink ships.
The secret could really be seen as a driving force behind the patty's popularity. You just wanted to know what was in it.
Some analysts believe that the real secret is just the idea that there is a secret formula. That alone is enough to pique people's curiosity.
Whether the success came from the quality of the burgers or the quality of the marketing, there was no denying that Eugene Krabs and his burger business were taking the world by storm.
The Krusty Krab only had one major competitor, the Chum Bucket. But it was no contest. The Krusty Krab blew it out of the water, metaphorically speaking. And it just so happened the Chum Bucket was run by Sheldon Plankton. I think Eugene relished in that a bit.
All that resolve he had as a kid was nothing compared to what he had now. Now that he had a taste of success, he wanted more.
Krabs quickly developed a number of unorthodox business habits, some that could be considered immoral.
He would charge his customers to use the bathroom. He was charging for ketchup packets and straws. It was like he thought just because he was Eugene Krabs, he could get away with it. And he was kind of right.
The customers just kept coming. I don't think anyone was really happy with the way Krabs ran things, but it was him or the highway. You could get a burger from another restaurant, but they weren't Krabby Patties.
Those who worked for him, well, they were divided too. You have Spongebob, who sees him as a hero, almost has a blind respect for the man. And then you have Squidward, who sees this tyrant who isn't even providing a fair wage.
Krabs even implemented a number of fees for his employees. They had to pay to breathe, to stand, just for even existing. I'm not sure everything he was doing was entirely legal. I can't say an employee strike came as much as a surprise. He worked those guys to the bone, and for next to nothing. Rumor has it his fry cook was paying him to work there. So yeah, they rebelled.
Even in the face of adversity, Krabs always knew how to handle a situation. I mean, every employee was protesting against him. But ever the diplomat, Krabs won them back. Now, he knew he'd have to make a sacrifice, and he made the call to stop billing them for breathing during working hours. Now, I know he took a hit from that. Think about it. That is a constant revenue stream. Cha-ching. That man was selfless.
Despite numerous road bumps, there was no denying Eugene's extreme business methods were working. It wasn't long before the Krusty Krab was a household name.
Next, you see frozen Krabby Patties in stores and Krusty Krab pizzas being delivered. It was like it was just this unstoppable force.
Here's a kid who started out with nothing. Now, his net worth is in the multi-millions, if not billions. I mean, from burgers.
All right, you might be thinking, they're just burgers. But they're more than that. These burgers have history. These burgers have passion. These burgers have Eugene Krabs. I don't care what restaurant you go to, you're not gonna find a burger to compete with that.
Krabs provided the entire sea with Krabby Patties. He provided it with dedicated employees. He provided it with quality food. He opened the door to the modern fast food world, and he did it against all odds.
The caveman invented the wheel, and the world changed. Ben Franklin discovered electricity, and the world changed. And then this humble little crab invented Krabby Patties, and the world changed. Go ahead and say, it's just a burger, he's just a crab, but you're wrong. Eugene Krabs is a visionary. He didn't just design the Krabby Patty. He designed the future.